let us try to pick out some important points from the gospel from which perhaps in one way or another we can mirror our lives in our quest for achieving heaven in our journey towards eternity. Christ knew that he could not do his mission alone. He needed help. So he actually used the so-called multiplier effect by choosing 72 people and disciples from among all those who have been following him. And he sent them in pairs. I'd like to take a look at the two important details, the number 72 and sending in pairs. Why 72? Because there was this belief, the common belief among the Jewish people at the time, that the nations of the world were exactly 72. This signifies somehow that the gospel, the challenge for the disciples, should be to spread the gospel to every corner of the world. And this is our challenge as well. We have to preach the gospel to every corner of the world, especially now that we are in this digital world where, according to St. John Paul II, it is not enough to preach the gospel in the four-walled church. We have to preach the gospel in the rooftops, using all the means of social communication, and through the digital highways, we are reaching to every place and all corners of the world because of technology. The second is that Jesus sent them in pairs, which means that Jesus did not send the disciple alone. He wanted to send them by pairs and by groups to create a community, because we cannot do that alone. We cannot spread the gospel alone. We have to need a lot of help from other people as well. That's why even in the creation of the world, when God created man, he ordained the fact that man must have a partner. When he said, it is not good for man to be alone. So he created a suitable partner, and he called it woman. But this time, even in evangelizing, Christ makes it a point that he must send one with other people to help, so that we as community are sent in order to help one another to build his kingdom here on earth in whatever capability we can do. And as we are sent, Christ in today's gospel, he was training the disciples first by putting on an attitude, that is, to travel light. In going to spread the gospel, we don't have to bring a lot of luggages. We only have to travel light, to have our own selves. No money bag, no food, no suitcase of clothing. But instead, according to him, we have to give our full trust in the providence of God and in the goodwill offerings of those to whom we minister. Which means that whenever we give our all endeavors and efforts for the greater glory of God, we don't have to worry about what to have, what to possess. We have to believe that every time we give for the Lord, He gives it back to us 100-fold. It is better to trust in the Lord than to trust in man. Therefore, believe in God's providence. A lot of times we believe that we are capable of doing things on our own without His help. But little do we know that many things we have, many things we possess today, it's not because we earn it. It's because God wills and gives that to us as gratuitous gifts. Thus, He said, go preach the gospel and travel light. Just trust in the Lord. But the greater challenge is to send the disciples as lambs among wolves. Lambs among wolves. What does this mean? It means, to understand this, we have to see the stark difference between the lambs and the wolves. The lambs symbolize meekness. The lambs are characterized by helplessness. They are incapable of finding food and water and incapable of protecting themselves. That's why lambs need shepherds, so that the shepherds will be the one to protect, to provide, to guide, and to lead the lambs. And the arch rival of the lambs and the arch enemies of the lambs are wolves. They are the fiercest enemies of the lambs. When He says, I am sending you as lambs among wolves, He means that we have to grow tougher. We have to grow stronger every day in our constant struggle against trials, tribulations, and persecutions. If we ask ourselves, who are the wolves in our lives? If we ask ourselves, what kind of wolves are we encountering in the circumstances and in the kind of life environment we're living today? Pope Francis challenged us, however, and he said, and I quote, I'd rather be a nuisance and annoying than being a lukewarm preacher. Take note, when you preach the truth, you will be persecuted. I have read an article saying that telling the truth is dangerous to your health. This is our challenge. Tell the truth, stand for the truth, and you will see a lot of wolves around you. And a lot of wolves in the different circumstances and environment you are in. The 72 disciples actually, it's just like telling us that we too, by the virtue of baptism, we have been called and we are chosen and sent as lambs among wolves. We have to understand that we don't have to go farther. We go wherever we belong. We are sent as lambs to our families. We are sent as lambs in our neighborhood, in the school, in our country, and in the circle of our friends, and in our workplace. The question is, in these places, who are our wolves? In these places, do we have that attitude and characteristics of the womb to be meek and mild, to be patient, to be docile and compliant against harsh and wild beasts? That's our challenge. But we have to know who are our wolves. The question is, how do we become lambs amidst wolves. How do we withstand the vicissitudes of time and environment? How? I'd like to answer that with a story of a young man who wanted to enter the monastery. He approached the abbot and he said, "Abbot, can I become a monk?" Monk. And the abbot said, "Yeah, you can become a monk, but you have to learn the lessons." What is the lesson? The abbot said, "I want you to go to the middle of the forest, stay there." He said, "What will I do?" He said, "Don't ask questions, just go there." So he went to the middle of the forest, and on his way, he met an old man. And the old man asked him, "Boy, where do you want to go?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to the forest." And he said, What will you do there?" Well, he said, the abbot said, "I just want to stay in the forest." And the old man said, "Take notes. In the forest, there are a lot of cobras." The young man said, "What will I do if I see a cobra?" The old man said, "Well, the first thing you will do is when you see a cobra, tolerate the cobra." So when he saw the cobra, he stood still. He didn't move. And the cobra looked at him and passed by smilingly. So he went to the abbot. "Can I become a monk?" The abbot said, "No, you just learned the first lesson. You have to go back to the forest and learn the second." So he went back to the forest. And he met the old man again. And he asked, "What will I do if I see a cobra?" The old man said, "When you see a cobra this time, do not just tolerate the cobra. You have to respect the cobra." So when he saw the cobra, he stood still. He bended a little bit. He took off his hat. And he said, "Good morning, cobra." And the cobra looked at him and passed by smilingly. He went to the abbot. "Can I become a monk now?" The abbot said, "No, you just learned the second lesson. You have to go back to the forest and learn the third." So he went back to the forest and he met the old man. And the old man asked him, he asked the old man, "What do I do next?" And the old man said, "When you see the cobra, this time, do not just tolerate the cobra. Do not just respect the cobra. This time, you have to admire the cobra." So when he saw the cobra, he stood still. He took off his hat. He bended a little bit. And he said, "Good morning, cobra." And the cobra looked at him and passed by smilingly. He went to the abbot. "Now, this time, can I become a monk?" The abbot said, "No, you just learned the third lesson. Go back and learn the fourth." He said, "It seems like it's endless." However, he went back and he met the old man. He asked, "What will I do next?" The old man said, "This time when you see a cobra, do not just tolerate the cobra. Do not just respect the cobra. Do not just admire the cobra. This time, you have to enjoy the cobra." So when he saw the cobra, he stood still. He took off his hat, he bended, he said, "Good morning, cobra." And he said, "Cobra, you're so beautiful." And the cobra looked at him and passed by smilingly. And this time, he gradually bended a little bit. He picked up the cobra. He put the cobra around his neck. The cobra crawled around his body and around his waist. And with the cobra in his waist, the cobra looked at him, and he looked at the cobra, and they smiled at each other. With the cobra around his waist, he went to the abbot and he said, "This time, can I become a monk?" The abbot said, "Oh yeah, you're now ready to become a monk." All right? The abbot said, "Just right behind these big doors of the monastery, just like behind these doors, get ready, because inside there are anacondas." And the story ends. This is what we must be doing as lambs amidst wolves. Learn to tolerate your cobra or your wolf. Learn to respect them. Learn to admire them. And whether you like it or not, you have to enjoy them because they coexist, because they are there. When you go home, whoever your cobra is, whoever your wolf is, when you go home, tolerate them, respect them, admire them, and above all, enjoy them. And little do you know that instead of them scaring you, you are scaring them with your kindness, gentleness, humility, tolerance, and acceptance. In that sense, the mission will continue until we all see each other again, not here, but in the life hereafter, in our journey towards eternity. So ako, maingon ragyog ko, magkita na lang unya ta dito sa langit. Puhon. See you when I see you.